Welcome to Bookies Talk on the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast. I am Amy Becker-Perez, the Book Club Associate, and I'm joined by my predecessor in this position and one of our readers' advisors here at the library, Marianne Charles.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me on this podcast, Marianne.
My pleasure.
As people who help others discover and discuss books, we first discover and discuss books ourselves. And it's not uncommon for us to first read and share and then dissect a book together in our back office or at the information desk. It's almost like a mini drop-in book club. So today, Marianne and I are going to talk book club books. Marianne, what would be some things that you would say makes for a good book club book?
You got to weigh a lot of factors with this. And I do this looking for my club each year. When I was in Amy's role prior, you ask all the standard questions. Do you want something with, like, say, this great story arc?
Yeah.
Do you want something on the lighter side, something that will be funny, exciting? Do you want a mystery, a whodunit? Do you want a certain literary style? Do you want something like a Hawthorne or a Hemingway? You want, like, one of the great masters and all this literary? Or do you just want a story you can sink your teeth into?
Yeah.
So I like to think of, what do we have? A great story arc, a book like This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger, or James, which is a newer book by Percival Everett. Both are retellings of Huckleberry Finn.
I just read both of those in the month of March. It was amazing to read them both so close together, and they are both excellent reads and have a lot for book discussion.
Lots. You've got meaty issues. With This Tender Land, you have the whole treatment of indigenous peoples in our country, the native schools that were huge up in Minnesota, probably parts of Wisconsin, Nebraska, the Dakotas as well. And so you have this treatment of native peoples to discuss. You have just being an orphan, and then this child finding his mother, looking that I am going to find her, and then the friendships.
Right.
And what goes along with friendship with James, but which is not part of our book club selections yet. But you have James, the retelling of Huckleberry Finn from Jim, the slave's point of view.
Right.
And here you talk about, well, obviously slavery, but racism and treatment, and how our Black brothers and sisters had to, quote-unquote, code switch. So go from standard English to more colloquial African-American speak.
Right.
And the challenges there. And you have even actual historical figures in this book.
Yeah.
And there's a big reveal. Spoiler alert, my mouth was open going, are you kidding me?
One of the things that I've noticed about book clubs is that some individuals in book clubs like to pick out the literary issues related to a book. And I think in both of those books, people would want to look at how books are structured or the use of language in those books, how different people speak in different ways, particularly in James, that is a specific use of language that comes in. But I think also in This Tender Land, when you're looking at it a little bit in the academic way, you might be able to look at how Huckleberry Finn was written or how different scenes might compare to others. But then there's also the way you might feel as you're reading it, the sense of adventure, absolutely the different adventure that all of the characters are going through in both of those books, and then the justice issues that both books lift up.
Well, and I love the language in both those books. You see in James how even our everyday English has changed.
Right, exactly.
And the authors do a great job in the literary structure, as you alluded to.
Yeah.
And they're both just really harrowing stories.
Yeah.
When you read what these characters go through. Other book clubs want to pick just books by authors of note.
Yes.
Well-known authors. So Amor Towles, has Lincoln Highway, now just recently A Table for Two. You have Maggie O'Farrell, who wrote Hamnet.
Yeah.
Talk about a heartbreaking book told from a mother's perspective.
Yeah.
And a Shakespeare story without ever mentioning Shakespeare's name.
That's really fun.
Brilliant, And Kate Quinn, who has her mysteries and historical fiction. So if you want more of that dive into a history, my book club just read The Diamond Eye, which was about an actual female sniper in World War II.
Wow.
And she was a real historical figure and developed a friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is, very interesting to hear about these two women working to make a difference for their countries.
Oh, so cool.
In a time when women didn't have a lot of voice.
Yeah.
And their friendship was just so genuine and funny. And these two women, and our main character, Ludmila, very much supported the communist Russia ideals and ideologies. And we're taught as Americans that this is wrong, that capitalism is the way to go. And it was very interesting to read a character who was, no, our way is better because we share everything with everyone.
Well, and that's one of the things I think that books in general give us is a way to engage in a different point of view and a way to help us see different parts of the world or see how other people live. One of my favorite books in our book club collection is Solito by Javier Zamora. We talked about language a little bit, but one of the things that I often find myself drawn to are books I find later out the author has been a poet already, and he is a poet. But this is a memoir, Solito by Javier Zamora, and it's his memoir of being a child who came to the United States from El Salvador. His parents were already in the United States, and his grandparents and parents scraped together money and paid a coyote, somebody who brought people to the United States. So it was a harrowing journey. He was 9 years old. He came by himself. It's raw. He talks about how difficult it is at night. There are other adults with him. There's kind of a little adopted family who kind of takes care of him, even though it's not their responsibility. But it's just beautiful. But how would you know anything about that if you have not gone through that yourself?
Right. So as readers, as human beings, we get to experience some of the fears, some of the angst, some of the wonder of probably being out in these lands as you're traveling.
Yeah.
My group is going to read Solito come September, so I'm very excited.
It's a gorgeous book. So we have alluded to that books can make us feel different ways. Do you have any that have really hit you in any particular way?
Well, I have a couple of books that really hit me hard. One of those books is Chain Gang All-Stars by...
Oh, yes. Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And yes, oh my goodness. Such a good book. This is one that both Marianne and I read. I will not steal this from you.
No, don't. Amy said, have you finished? She kept saying to me, have you finished? Have you finished? This is one of those books we dissected and talked about in our office. And actually, I finished this book one morning right before the library opened. I was sitting at the information desk, and Amy comes walking by. She goes, you just finished, because there were tears coming out of my eyes.
Yes.
And I said... oh, my goodness. I am so moved. You get so immersed in these characters. If this is a book, you don't really know the setting. Sometime in the dystopian future.
But not that far.
But not that far. And you have convicts who are given a choice of participating in like an American gladiator style. But this is American gladiators to the death. If they can survive 2 years, their prison sentence is wiped clean.
Yeah.
They are free. But these challenges get more and more difficult, and people then decided to make this journey a little easier. They were going to form gangs, so to speak, so that they could at least support each other, give each other. You won weapons. It was almost like a video game.
It also has the reality TV element to it, and people would root for the people that they
liked, like a Hunger Games.
Yeah, it was like the Hunger Games in that way. Yeah,
but you get invested into these two main characters, reading their stories, reading about what they went through, and you say they never had a chance.
No.
They never had a chance. And it certainly applies to people today.
Because the other thing is, what's really interesting is that the author puts footnotes in about our prison system as it is. So at the same time,
you're reading fiction. You're getting a piece of how the fiction is founded in parts of reality.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating, gripping, challenging read.
And this is one title that is a brand new title to our book club collection for summer of 2024. So if you and your book club would like to read this, you can reserve that title by contacting me. We'll put that information in the show notes. So we're also adding one that has had some controversy. It's called Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. It's gotten a lot of strong reaction from people either not liking it or really liking it. And I think it makes a really good book discussion because people have that strong reaction. There's that emotional response that, if you know anything about the book, is an appropriate response because it has to do a lot with a white person stealing an Asian person's manuscript and portraying herself as Asian in order to market the book and herself. It's biting and it has harsh criticism of the publishing industry, but also of white people who speak about allyship out of their mouths, but not with their actions. So as I read it, felt so uncomfortable. And that was an okay response.
And that's how you want to respond.
Yeah.
And as you said, opening on this, you don't necessarily have to like the book or like the characters in order to have a good discussion.
Yes.
Sometimes you find it's almost better because you can really dig in
on
both the literary style and those characters. And you could say, I found nothing redeeming in this character. But you can get in that character's head and say, oh, this is what they thought. This is what they were doing, and this is why.
Exactly.
You can at least say, all right, I still don't like it, but I understand why decisions were made and why the author was doing this. This is when you can really dig into literary styles as well.
Exactly. Well, and not all of our book club books are heavy. We have a number of in our collection, especially newer ones that we were talking about this morning too, like romantic comedy.
By Curtis Sittenfeld.
Yeah, and Lessons in Chemistry.
Lessons in Chemistry, or The Guncle, which is a funny, charming book. Or you have Remarkably Bright Creatures as well.
Yes.
And there's funny, there's humor, there's make smile moments. But that's not to say there isn't meat to discuss in those.
Exactly.
I mean, with Remarkably Bright Creatures and The Guncle, you have elements and themes of grief and how we process grief and what we manage. With Lessons in Chemistry, you have sexism and unequal treatment in our sciences, or just in society in general. But Elizabeth Zott, your main character in that, is so funny how she manages things. But then she's also neurodiverse. And so you have other things to talk about and how she navigates the world and navigates her lab.
So really quick, are there any other books that you think we should be paying attention to for book clubs?
For book clubs. So a couple of the books I've read recently, other than James, I'm going to harp that again.
Such a good book.
I'm going to harp that one again. I read The Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang, which is, and I wrote about it in Shelf Life, so a few months ago. So check that out. Great, again, dystopian about food and about who has food and our food supply and chains and environments. Again, Hamnet is in our collection. That is a truly moving book. The story of Shakespeare writing the play Hamlet. But a lot of this is told from his wife's perspective. And the joys and heartbreaks of parenthood and marriage.
I would name drop Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. It's about a young Iranian man who now lives in the United States who's lost many people around him. And he becomes obsessed with martyrs and the meaning of life. And as he researches, he's thinking about writing a book. And as he researches, he finds out more about his own history and family and finds some true meaning. So it was a little dark. It was funny and also meaningful. I would recommend that book. And then there's one book that we have not mentioned that we both also loved, probably almost as much as Chain Gang All-Stars, which was Happiness Falls.
Happiness Falls by Angie Kim.
Yeah.
Talk about, you have your main character. He is one of the main characters, a neurodivergent adult living with his family, and his father goes missing. And then it's the oldest daughter and her brother.
And her twin brother.
Her twin brother searching for their father and trying to figure out what happened here. And so there's a mystery.
Yeah.
Here.
It's such a good book.
And there's so much to delve into between the family dynamics, between how we treat our neurodivergent people.
Right. Or anybody who might not communicate the same way. I have somebody close to me who is losing her ability to communicate. And I was reading that at the same time. And it was so eye-opening to be like, oh, that this just means something to me right now.
To me.
Yeah.
But if that isn't part of your life, or it doesn't speak to you, is a mystery element.
There's definitely a mystery element. It was amazing.
And a mystery is fun. It's fun to figure out a whodunit. Really, you have a plethora of options in our book club collection.
Well, finally, we are in the business of helping people get books. Our book club collection will consistently have a little over 250 titles to choose from. And my job is to assist book clubs with getting books for their clubs. We have 12 library-sponsored book clubs where a library staff member leads the conversation, and about 60 community book clubs. So contact me at aperez@cooklib.org if you would like to set up a community book club. Thank you, Marianne, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining both of us today. We will be sure to put links to all of the titles we discussed in our show notes. That's going to be a long show notes. If you're looking for personalized reading suggestions, please fill out our Ask a Bookie form on the website, and we'll give you a personalized list of suggestions no matter what kind of book you're in the mood for. You can also find us at the library's website, at Shelf Life the blog, or by emailing us at webmaster@cooklib.org. Also, make sure to sign up for our Summer Book Buzz, which launches June 5th. We'll put a link to registration also in those long show notes. And don't forget the summer reading program starts June 1st. As always, you can support the podcast by sharing it with your friends and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.